Hey, it's Michael Che, and this is going to be my reading roundup for the spring of 2025. And so, what have I been reading this spring since I did my last video on reading? Well, this play, Epiphany, and it's by Brian Watkins. I first saw this play right after we opened up with COVID. The theaters opened back up on Broadway. It was at Lincoln Center, and I was in New York the summer of 2022, and I saw this play. And it's all about how disconnected we are, which coming out of COVID seemed like somebody must have wrote this during COVID and got Lincoln Center to produce it, and they went, yes, this is so topical. But really, it was written in 2019. So it's really about how devices, being on our phones all the time, it's separating us, and we're not getting together for meetups and in person, seeing each other, talking to each other, and it's all online. Well, so after COVID, this seemed even more relevant than it probably was in 2019, and I thought, I have to do this at school. And the casting breakdown is something that was going to work for me and has some flexibility, and it's one set, but it's just so about what we're talking about as teachers in terms of kids being just tethered to their devices and not interacting with each other, and how important that is. And of course, theater. I love teaching theater, not because just I love theater, but for kids, it makes them interact with each other in a way that has nothing to do with their phone. So anyway, I thought this is a great play to do, and I'm doing it this spring. So I've been reading this lately. It wasn't available right away, so this is the first year that I could possibly do this in terms of licensing it. So I'm looking forward to that. Also, I usually do plays that were from the early part of the 20th century because they're a little bigger, you can accommodate more kids in them, they're clean, you don't have to worry about the content issues. So the more contemporary you get with theater, the more content issues you have to deal with. But this one's fine, and it's going to be good. Okay. So I guess my point was I'm excited that I'm doing something from the recent past instead of from the 1930s. Or something, or the 50s, The last play I did, The Dining Room, was from the 1980s, so that's getting closer. Okay, so when I last spoke to you about books, I had just received this and had started in reading this. This is Old Films, Young Eyes, A Teenage Take on Hollywood's Golden Age by Simone O. Elias. I stopped reading it in the middle. In fact, I don't know how far I got. I got a little further than the middle. It's interesting. She's all over the place with how she's organizing her subject matter. But it seems to be, she's 15 years old when she wrote this, so more power to her. I didn't publish anything when I was 15 years old, my goodness. And I love that she's a teenager getting interested in classic film, because my students have almost no interest in it. I'll have a kid here and there who does, but mostly they don't. It's not that they don't have an interest, they haven't been exposed to it, they don't know about it. And unless I show them something, they really don't know. And usually when I show them something, they do get interested in it. It awakens something like, there's a whole world before Harry Potter that I can look at in the movies, or before the Star Wars franchise, whatever is the hot thing. Beyond the Disney movies they are taken to see. So I think that's really cool. However, this is the perspective of a 15-year-old who's looking through the prism of the last 5 years, really. She started getting into watching old films on Turner Classic Movies during COVID, which isn't that long ago. And so the perspective is, surrounding the Me Too movement and everything else that's politically correct or incorrect going on right now that we're talking about. And then you look at these old movies, and there's a lot of stuff in there that, raises red flags and stuff for somebody who only has that perspective. And so Ray Bradbury said a great thing. When you're 17, you think you know everything, and when you're 27, you realize you don't know anything. But if you still think you know everything, then you really stopped developing when you were 17. And I think that's a true point. I certainly can see that in myself. And So I wonder what book she'll write when she's 27, and I hope she does. And I think she'll have a different perspective. She's both enjoying these things and criticizing them in a way that lacks perspective. So it was kind of bugging me to the point of like, I can't listen to this teenager rant about old movies as much as she seems to also like them. It's not gonna do it. So not for me. But I love that she's out there publishing and doing something and speaking her mind. I mean, this is all positive. I got interested in this E.M. Forster book, The Longest Journey. I recommended, this was recommended when I was reading about E.M. Forster because I do like his books, Passage to India. I think I was watching the movie of Passage to India. And so it got me on a little thing about E.M. Forster. And I also love Morris and Room with a View, and I love the film versions of those things as well as the books. So this was recommended. Lots of people writing said this is really great and quintessentially him, and I just had a hard, I got halfway. You can see I have a marker right there, that's how far I got, and I'm not gonna finish it. Maybe I'll come back to it, but it just wasn't holding my interest, and it wasn't. The other books that I've read of his have been way more interesting. The other thing I think is true is that I came to the movies first, and then I went to the book. So I wonder if that has something to do with it. Like, I wasn't invested in these characters because I didn't know them from their movie versions. Can that work? Because a lot of people say, oh, the movie isn't as good as the book. But, because you can't fit everything in a book into the movie all the time, and that's why. But, and they're different mediums anyway. But anyway, I wonder. I don't know. It's a theory, it's a thought. But I'm not gonna fit, it's gonna stay on my shelf and we'll see if I come back to it. If I get in the E.M. Forster mood again. Okay, so at work, I have a new situation where I lost my technical director, which is a big bummer, problematic to the max, and to the max. That's such a 1980s teenager thing to say, to the max. That just popped out of me from my past. The Empty Space by Peter Brook is a seminal theater book that everybody gets assigned to in college. I never was assigned it. I was talking to my friends when I was back in New York and over the spring break, and they were all like, oh yeah, I read it, I had to read it twice. But it's, I was hoping what it was about was, you know, going into a black box theater space and all the creativity you can do with very little, which is kind of my new normal, is how much creativity can I do without, when I don't have that extra technical theater person's help. I might be in situations where I have to downsize a lot of what I do. Even though I am going to be allowed to hire outside contractors to come in and help me, those people aren't necessarily available when I need them to be, and you know, it's going to be a challenge. But so I thought this would be a good idea. Turns out this isn't so much about staging ideas, it's more of a theater philosophy. And the empty space means every space you start with a clean slate, an empty canvas, the empty space, and what are you going to create? You have the world at your feet to create something within this space. And it's talking about his views of everything from Broadway theaters and situations to, and how unions regulate things, to simpler black box, odd spaces. And I've worked in, I learned nothing new here, but it was interesting in a philosophical way, the empty space. Anyway, it's required reading for a lot of college programs, and I can see why, but it's not going to help me. And I've worked in every kind of space there is to work in terms of being a director or being an actor, and so I do have a reference to all these possibilities. I'm a creative person. I can come up with something. Another recommendation that came to me was Like People in History, a gay American epic by Felice Picano. That sounds like it's a female name, but it's really a male name. Felice Picano is a male. His picture is in the back of the book here. But I like the cover art, it's painted. This is from the 90s. So it's about, the main character starts out in the 50s and he's a kid and comes into a realization of his sexuality, and then it goes up into the 90s. So you cover the 70s, and then you cover the AIDS epidemic era, and it's also about his cousin who was more flamboyantly gay and out there, and he was a little more reserved, and so there was this yin and yang kind of feeling between the two characters and how they know each other and they're friends and that intersect with them all through the years. Now, it jumps back in time. It starts in the 50s, but it jumped forward and went all over the place, and I started getting confused about the characters, and I needed a program to follow who's who and how are they related. And now, to be fair, when you read Charles Dickens, you need that too. There's so many characters to keep track of. So, he's in good company with Charles Dickens, but I got through to this point. You can see my marker, it's a little further than halfway, and I just got tired of it. And it's a little frivolous, it's kind of fun, it's fiction, it's meant to be fun. I think it would make a great TV series, actually, and you'd be able to follow it better. And maybe somebody should do that, because it covers some history, but it also has a lot of fun things they get into that are fun adventures and things that I think would be good on screen. I just couldn't finish it. I got disinterested. So I decided to go for something really light and fun, because I still have 2 more Hardy Boys books to read. So I'm just finishing The Melted Coins. I've collected only the Hardy Boy. During COVID, I had a couple on my shelf, and the original texts, which in 1958 or 59, they rewrote all of the texts up to that date to clean them up, changed the word count to something a little less in uniform, and got rid of a lot of stuff they probably should have, which had to do with stuff that wasn't politically correct and maybe stereotypical ways of depicting ethnicities and things like jokes that don't work anymore, things like that. So I collected these because I wanted to read what they originally were before they were cleaned up. And they're not so bad, but every now and then you get a dialect from a Chinese character who happens to run a laundry. Of course he does, stuff like that. Aside from that, they're really fun, and they're a page turner, because you get to the end of a chapter and you really do kind of want to turn the page and see what's going to happen, because he's really good about making you want to turn that page after that chapter. That's one of the things these are really good at. And the original author is Leslie McFarlane, writing under the nom de plume Franklin W. Dixon. So I just wanted to collect just his stuff, because he was the original author. That's all the reading I did which I didn't think I read that much, because I kept stopping. Here's like 3 books in here that I did not finish. So I guess I was disenchanted with some of my reading, even though I gave them the college try. So I've been talking the last couple of times that I keep meaning to read this book about Hirschfeld, Al Hirschfeld, the caricaturist who chronicled Broadway and Hollywood with his cartoons. And he's a fascinating person in history and connected to the theater, and I'm going to read this now. Officially, I'm going to start reading it. So that's my reading for the spring, and Hirschfeld kicks off reading for the summer. And I don't know, I'm looking at this thinking, maybe this will take the whole summer, we'll see. I also have to read, I'm working on Little Shop of Horrors, the musical in the fall. I'm also at American River College going to choreograph the musical Amelie, so I have that to consider with my brain. And then I have Epiphany coming up. So, some of my time is going to be spent thinking, reading, taking notes, preparing for those things, which takes up some of my reading time. And then I have a new class. My usual theater arts and acting focus classes don't take a lot of prep, because I sort of have those in place, but I'm taking over the theater tech class, and I have to come up with a kind of a lesson plan, but I have some work to do on that. So I feel like Hirschfeld's going to be my only leisure fun reading in between all of my prep for the new semester in the fall. So thanks for watching. And keep reading, everybody. It's great to read an actual book. Although I have to tell you, I still use my Kindle sometimes, because I'm running out of space to collect books, and I just love a real book. But I do sometimes choose to just go with the Kindle on something, especially if it's contemporary, and it's not necessarily something I want to save. This is on the shelf, for looks. So the Kindle I still love, but and then I'm gonna pick out something to read on my long car trip to Oregon, so that I have a book on digital that I can play on my phone through my car stereo and having somebody read to me as I drive. I think that's a great way of reading a book too. And sometimes I like to do that, especially if it's something a little harder to get through. Sometimes I like to just listen to it. I'll listen to it on a bike ride, a car trip, something like that. So I'm gonna pick out something and I'll report back on what that was. But for now, Hirschfeld, thanks for watching.
Then the world discovers, as my book ends, how to make two lovers a friend.